Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have Carla McGowan joining us here once again and have a very special guest today as well. Carla, Allison Jeffries joining us. Ladies, welcome both to the show today. How are we?
Thank you. It's great to be back. Great to see you. So
Same
happy to
here.
have Allison here today.
Yay! All right, Carla, tell us a little bit about yourself first, what you do, and then we'll also introduce Allison into the mix as well, of course.
Of course. Well, I am a faith-based counselor and also a life coach. And I have Radiant Coaching and Counseling. And I work quite a bit with couples, married couples, a lot in crisis. And we're going to focus a lot today on that. I actually met Allison at a networking group and I immediately liked her. And I thought, I know this woman is she's so, she's got so much knowledge and wisdom and experience. So I really am happy to have her here today. Welcome, Allison.
Hi, Allison. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please, and what you do.
Okay. I am what I consider a life recreation coach, kind of an intuitive life coach specifically for women. I love working with women because as women, we know we're exponential. We learn something good, we turn around and we share it with all the other women that we know. And so what I do is I help women break free from the fear and the judgment and the opinions of others and learn how to live their own lives based on their hearts and their desires and become as happy as we were all intended to be.
Excellent. And I also want to read a little bit of your bio, that you have authored an Amazon best-selling book, A Woman's Guide to Surviving Divorce, and that you are a life and relationship coach. And you also earned your degree in psychology and that you have a 30+ year corporate career, working in multiple Fortune 100 companies in the financial industry. So you've had a lot of experience. And I know that you are a really, really effective coach. And I'm just really glad that you're here, part of this conversation today. And so I wanted to jump in because Jill, the last time I saw you, we had a podcast on the 5th of January, I believe. And I was kind of going through what I encounter when I work with couples, sort of the issues that recur and that I see all the time. And we finally got to infidelity and we ran out of time. So it's a loaded subject. And I thought that we would just dive in and start talking about this because it is a huge problem. And I have personally been encountering a lot of my clients recently with this issue. So I wanted to talk about really why does infidelity happen? Three things, really. Why does it happen? How can it be avoided? What can you do to safeguard your relationship so that it doesn't happen? And then what do you do when it does actually happen? So 60% of marriages actually do end in divorce because of infidelity. And so it's not the number one reason. My latest research said was 73% is a lack of commitment. But I do think that plays into it because if you're not committed to your relationship and you're not willing to work through your issues, just to sort of my experience, what I see is why this happens in a relationship is because they don't take care of it and they don't nurture it. It's like they think the intensity of the emotions when they first fall in love are just going to automatically stay there. But why were those emotions so intense at the beginning? Well, first of all, it was new, but also you're falling in love with someone, right? You're spending all this time with them. You're talking to them. You're sharing your heart, your experiences. You're talking about your family, your dreams. You're talking. How do you get to know someone? You talk to them. You spend a lot of time doing that. And you date. You go out on dates. You have experiences. You get to know each other. You bond. You have fun. And you pursue the relationship, right? The men love to pursue, women love to be pursued. So there's a lot of energy being put into the relationship when it starts. Then people progress, they get married. And sometimes what happens is they put the marriage on the back burner. We're married now, we check that box. But life happens. We've got careers, we've got jobs, we've got bills, we've got kids. And if you're not taking care of your relationship, you're not meeting each other's needs, it's not the priority, you stop talking, You stop dating, you stop pursuing, and then you wonder why your marriage isn't good. So I do think that these are some of the basic reasons why people lose their connection. And maybe they find a connection somewhere else. And instead of working on the relationship, because ultimately I believe infidelity is a symptom of a problem, either in the relationship or with the person. So I know, Allison, you and I've had some dialogue about it. What do you want to add to that?
If you were to ask me what the number one cause of divorce is from all the women that I've coached and talked to over the years, the number one reason for divorce is you married the wrong person. Because when we date, we go into dating, we find somebody, we feel that spark. To me, that's what God puts in our hearts. We can recognize that potential mate out there. We feel that spark and we start dating. And the first thing we commit ourselves to is making this relationship work. And unfortunately, that is the wrong thing to do, because you've met somebody, you've got a fledgling relationship, and you do everything you can to overlook the things that aren't going to work for you and be okay with this relationship so that you have one and you make it work. And that goes on. And then we get married before we really dig into, is this person compatible with me? Are we on the same life journey? Will we be compatible 20, 30, 40 years, in the future? I kind of believe when you're dating, you should start with the end in mind. If I marry this person, will I still love them when we get old and gray and things start shifting? And people don't consider that. And when you do the work up front in your relationship, you can create a relationship that lasts the test of time. But because we get into these relationships trying to make it work, and now we're married, and you add all the things into it that you talked about, kids and jobs and family expectations and financial needs, and you're in a strained relationship, married maybe to the wrong person, and you're looking for that love and that faith and that fulfillment that you hope to get out of your marriage. And so people are going outside of the marriage to find what they need.
Right.
And to me, that is the symptom that marriage is just not working. People say, oh, I got divorced because he cheated. No, you got divorced because your marriage wasn't working. He cheated because the marriage wasn't working. You cheated because the marriage wasn't working. They're almost the same thing. Does it mean after cheating, you can't recover your relationship? Oh, heck no. At any point in a relationship, you can always do a reset.
Right.
But you have to do it from the place of asking, is this the right person and the right relationship for me? That's the only way you can make it work.
Right. You bring up a great point. And obviously, I work with engaged couples, and we go deep. We ask those hard questions because you really want to make sure that you are sharing the same core values, that you do want the same things out of life, that you share the same worldview, the same belief system, maybe even the same political affiliation. I mean, you are on the same page and you're going in the same direction, and you want the same things. So yes, square one, be sure that you do, and you take your time to get to know that person. I mean, I ask couples all the time, well, how long did you date before you got engaged? Or how long were you engaged before you got married? And I'm always like, where's the fire? Why are you guys in such a hurry? I mean, it really takes a good 2 years to really get to know someone. However, even people can put up fronts for 2 years. So you really do want to see them in all kinds of walks of life situations, with different relationships with their family. How does, if it's a man, how does he treat his mom? What's his relationship like with his parents? How does he treat his friends, his colleagues? How does he treat the waiter at the restaurant? Who is this person? You fall in love with their character. So yes, I do agree with that. And I do think that sometimes people, obviously, they just marry for the wrong reasons to the wrong person. And then you really do have a problem, because then you have to work through and go, is this something that we can sustain? But I do want to talk about, how can you avoid it? Like we just talked about, meeting each other's needs. How can you, I guess, adultery proof your relationship? And again, it has to do with making sure that you are dealing with the issues in your marriage. And if you aren't able to do it on your own, go get some help. You know, the average couple will wait 6 years before they get help. The average first marriage lasts 8 years. So if you're in trouble and things aren't going well and you're miserable, don't stay in that. Go out and get some help. You know, there's plenty of people out there who have skills and tools, and it's really a heart issue, right? You have to make a decision. Sometimes love is just a decision and a choice to stick to it and to be committed. So I don't know, I mean, obviously you don't necessarily work with couples. Is that right, Allison? You're working with single women.
Well, just with the woman. Sometimes
They
they're married,
or single. Okay.
married or single. You know, I think for me, and you talked about, you know, getting to know him. We have a much bigger problem in society today for women when we get into relationships. And that problem, I call it the good girl problem.
Mm.
Because when we're growing up, we're taught to be a good girl.
Mm.
We're taught to be obedient. We're taught not to talk too much. We're taught to be respectful. We're taught to, you know, follow direction, right? This is what we're taught as little girls. And when we grow up and we're vibrant young women and we're passionate and we're full of fire, and then we meet a man and we think it's love. And we start thinking future and potential and lifetimes. We start thinking, how can I be, you know, if I want to be this guy's wife, how can I be the best wife I can be to him? So we get married. I'm trying to be the best wife. The only role I know is the good girl role. So I transitioned into the good girl role. Well, now we have a problem. Everybody always agrees that sounds like what I was raised to be, a good girl. So I went online and I Googled good girl. And what I'll tell you is don't do it, because somebody's hijacked it and it all X-rated sites. And I was like, well, this is wrong. That doesn't tell you what's wrong in the world today.
Mm.
And so I needed a good definition that I could use for this conversation. So you know what I Googled?
Mm.
Characteristics of a well-behaved dog.
Ah,
Mm.
Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now you get in the picture. We are these vibrant, wonderful, amazing, interesting women. We meet a man. We start morphing into the good girl because that's what we need to do to keep him. We get married, and now we're the family pet. And he's bored. We're not the woman he thought he married.
Mm-hmm.
We sold him a bill of goods. I'm not saying it's always the wife's fault. I'm just saying that the only person we can heal is ourselves. And as a woman, if you're in a relationship and you're like, something isn't right, quit pointing the finger out there until you've done the inventory in here.
True.
Am I being myself?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm not, I can do all the work in the world. I can go to all the counseling in the world. And in the end, he still may not be the right person for me because I'm not being myself.
Good. Yeah.
So, and that is the foundation. You find yourself in a situation where there's been infidelity in your marriage. Same drill, ladies. Let's get back to figuring out who we are, what we want in our lives, what works for us. And amazingly, you might find that that spouse still fits you when you're yourself. But when you're acting like the family pet, over time, he is going to begin to treat you like the family pet.
Mm.
And we're going to accommodate and accommodate and accommodate what he wants until the point where we resent.
Mm.
And then when we resent, the fight's on. It's a nonstop situation between us and him. He's now getting it because we resent him. And he doesn't know why.
Mm.
He doesn't know why. He's treating us like a really well-behaved dog. That's what we asked for. And that's what he's giving us. And now we're unhappy.
Mm.
And so for me, it always starts with, you know, what do I want? What do I need? Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Am I even acting like myself? You know, I knew something was really wrong. I've been divorced twice. I admit to it. I'm now with the love of my life, and we've been happily together for 12 years. So I got something right this time. At the end of my second divorce, I was standing there and I was laughing just out loud. And my son was in front of me and he was 18. And he looked at me And he had this horrified look on his face. And I was like, what's wrong? He goes, Mom, I just realized how long it's been since I've heard you laugh.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Because of being the person I thought I needed to be for my ex-husband, my sense of humor, my love of life, my love to laugh out loud like a fool got lost.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that we have to be really honest and transparent and authentic. And we have to be connected to ourselves and be a whole person. I do think that sometimes people get married because they're looking for someone to take care of them, meet my needs, make me happy. And they, I always tell people, look, you are responsible for your own happiness. Do not expect somebody else to do this for you because they can't, first of all. You have to do it. And also being your authentic self. So I did have a couple one time, they were engaged and she actually had stepped out of the relationship. She'd had an affair. And I asked her one time, I said, why do you think that happened? And she said, well, I don't really feel like I can just say how I really feel with my fiance. And I'm like, okay, we're in trouble. If you cannot say how you really feel, if you're afraid of his reaction, then yes, you are playing a part, right? You are portraying yourself in a way that is not who you truly are, and you can't keep that up. At some point, the facade falls, and you find out who you really are. I know my husband, when he first got married to his first wife, I think I've shared this before, he dated her for 2 years in college. They got married really young, right out of college. And he said she turned into a different person. So she kept up the front as well. So you're right. It starts with being real and knowing who you truly are, and then knowing this person and really what are you getting yourself into, and taking the time to know those things. So but getting back to if it does happen, right? Like, how do you avoid it? Well, you safeguard, you put boundaries around, you deal with your issues, you get help if you need it, you take care of your relationship, right? You make it the priority. But if it does happen, of course, it depends on the situation. How can you recover from that? Like you said, you have to know, is this the right person for me? Is this the right relationship? But you've got to rebuild the trust, right? Because trust has been broken. And I always say, look, the person who stepped out, they're going to have to work 4 or 5 times harder to reestablish that trust. And that's done through being completely open and honest, transparent. There's no secrets, completely accountable, and then consistent over a period of time, because trust is earned. And if you've broken the trust, right, you've got to rebuild it. And you've also got to reconnect, and you've got to work on the issues that maybe caused the rift, right? That caused the desire to look elsewhere in the first place. So divorce recovery is also important. So, hopefully people can work through their issues. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, when it actually does happen. Because didn't you say you had a client, you knew some people, they worked through adultery,
Absolutely.
and
Oh,
their relationship was, better than ever.
Yes. I mean, here, I'm going to say it. What is adultery about? What is it so offensive about adultery? Sex. They had sex with someone else. Okay. That is the most intimate, personal thing you do. And someone in your marriage just stepped out and did it outside of the marriage. Why did they do that? Well, because they're not getting what they need in the relationship. And that's endemic. I've got a joke I love to tell, but I won't tell it here. But I will. My favorite joke. Okay. What is the difference between a mistress, a hooker, and a wife? The hooker asks, was that good for you? The mistress says, oh, that was wonderful. And the wife says, beige. I think I'll paint the ceilings beige. And unfortunately, that joke is funny because we've all done it. And here's the thing. If you look at love, which should be the base component of marriage, there's 4 parts: heart, mind, body, and soul. Okay. Starts in your heart, that little spark we talked about. It's there so you can recognize a potential partner. It's also the place where we build trust. We trust from our heart. Okay. That's why love feels like it comes from our heart, because you have to have trust before you can have love. It takes time to build. You
True.
said 2 years to get to know somebody. It takes a while to build trust in somebody. Everybody's different, but people skim over that trust part. They go right on into the other parts.
Mhm.
And a lot of times in today's world, they go right into the body part.
Right.
Okay. And the body is sex. And this is the biggest gift that we've been given in life. It's the balm that heals all wounds in a relationship. It's the one thing you share with that partner that you can't share anywhere else, that you need to trust this person
Mhm.
before you can relax, before you can engage, before you can be open and just let it all go. And we don't take that time to build that trust. We don't take that time to know if we're like-minded. We don't take the time to find out if we're on the same soul journey. And more importantly, we remove the ability to build the trust we need to build with someone to have that open, honest, and loving relationship in sex. And quite frankly, for those of us here in the United States, we were raised to believe that we're not supposed to even like it. Think about it. 2 girls in high school, one was popular, one was considered risque, a tramp, whatever you want to call her. Okay. What's the difference between the 2 girls? The one that's popular dates the quarterback of the football team, and we know she has sex because he wants it, but she does it because he wants it. The risque girl, she likes it. That
Mhm.
is the difference.
Mhm.
The girl that we pick on, that we make fun of, that we call names, she just happens to like sex. Well, guess what? We were all made to enjoy it.
Mhm. That's right. Yep.
We were made to enjoy it, but through the way we were brought up in the culturalization, we get it in our head that even after we're married, if we like it too much, he'll think that we're promiscuous.
Hmm.
He'll think that we're one of those girls or we're one of those girls. So we have to tone it down. And at the end of the day, when we have sex, we're women, we're the ones that are invaded. They're the ones doing the invading. We have to have a higher level of trust
Mhm.
that we're not going to be hurt,
Right.
that it's
Exactly.
going to feel good, and that it's going to be mutual. And we never allow ourselves, in most cases, to get to that place because we jump into it far too early.
Mhm.
And then we're so busy trying to make the marriage, the relationship or the marriage work. We think our job is just to lay there and paint the ceiling beige
Mhm.
and everything should be fine. And I can promise you, the more beige your ceiling becomes,
Mhm.
the worse and more rocky your relationship will become.
Mhm.
There's a reason we all
Mm.
love to kiss and make up. It's worth
Mhm.
it to have a fight because the makeup. But if you don't get to that place where you can have that kind of makeup, where you have that kind of intimacy, where you have that kind of openness and trust,
Mhm. That's right. Yes.
you're living a lie.
Yes. Right. Well, I do always ask them, when I'm talking to a couple, we do rules of engagement, and the first one is same team. We're always on the same team. And the underlying foundational belief is that we always have each other's best interests at heart. And sometimes people will say, I don't believe that my spouse has my best interest at heart. And I'm like, okay, we're in trouble. Because if you don't believe that, then you can't trust them. And if you can't trust them, you can't be intimate with them. So the degree that you trust someone, that you can relax and be who you are, and you feel safe, especially for a woman, the way to a woman's sexuality is through her heart. So these things have to be met, that the communication has to be there, the affection, the unconditional love, feeling secure and safe, and having that respect and knowing that I'm in a safe place and I'm truly loved for who I am unconditionally. And then you can open up and relax. And I do think that women, I do think that women enjoy sex. And I do think that, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that some people, they depends on how they were raised, how they were taught to think about it, what they've been exposed to in their life. I will say this, and I don't even know if I want to go there, but what I'm finding is that in a lot of the issues that I'm encountering at the moment, porn has a place to play in this issue, right? And there can be addictions, there can be, it's just a thing that creeps in and it's so available. And I'm seeing how it's ruining and destroying relationships. And I always encourage people, it's not just men, it's mostly men, but it's not just women too. Is you really have to deal with that addiction. You cannot live in that fantasy world, and it's really not going to work for your relationship. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I'm kind of throwing you a curveball by bringing that up.
Go for it, Allison. She's like, I got this. I got it.
Well, the thing, what people don't realize is that for men, sex is 10% mental, and the other 90% is some combination of physical or visual.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, it just is what it is. As women, we are 10% physical or visual, 90% mental. The stars, our mind has to be in the right place to have sex.
And also
You know.
emotional, right? You say mental and emotional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, our mind has to be in the right place. Our emotions have to be in the right place. How many women have sex with a man and then think they must be in love? It happens all the time. So for us, it's a much different connection.
Right.
And that is something that people need to understand. And that if he's not getting what he needs, or you're not getting what you need, whether it's the mental stimulation or the emotional stimulation we need, or the visual or the physical that he needs, sooner or later, somebody's going to go elsewhere. But like you said, with porn, it makes everything more accessible. It makes, things that, are not normal for some people seem like they must be normal.
Right. Exactly.
When they're not. And when you're not both on that same page, where you don't break down the barriers between you by developing that trust, so that you can talk about, what is it you like? What is it you want to do? Would I be willing to try that? Nope, that's something I won't try, but I would try this, and be willing to work with each other. You have to be in the right headspace as a woman to say, I love this man enough. I'm not doing this because I'm just trying to save my marriage. I'm doing it because I love this person.
Right.
I want him to be fulfilled. And quite frankly, I might like it too. You never know. And opening yourself up to that ability to say, it's okay for me to enjoy this. It is absolutely okay.
Yeah.
And once you get that in your head, and now, like you said, you're both working on the part of, my job is not to make you happy. Your job is not to make me happy. But that doesn't mean I don't care about your happiness. And I'm not willing to contribute where I can to help you be happy, as long as it's mutual.
Right.
As long as both parties are not only looking at what they like. I always say, you're rocking and rolling along, and people say, I'm looking for someone, I want my person so they fulfill me and make me happy. No, you just got to be happy.
Right. Exactly.
And then when you find your person, they
That's
add
right.
to the happiness.
That's
Perfect
right.
way to say it. My mom, my mom and my dad, she was telling me the same thing. My mom's passed 7 years now, but they were together for like 40 years, I guess, before she passed, and they'd had a horrible relationship. But she always told me, you got to find someone to make you happy. And then after she passed, and I'm like, no, that's not the way it works. That's why you weren't happy. You have to be happy with yourself, and you were never happy with yourself. I love that you said that.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, I really do want to give people hope today. I really do want to say, look, if you're in a situation and there has been an infidelity, I mean, there are legitimate reasons to get divorced. Let's just not forget that. I mean, adultery, if you have any kind of a biblical worldview, that is a reason. It's in the Bible. Like if there's adultery, that's a reason, right? If there's any kind of abuse, if you're in a kind of abusive relationship, you do not need to stay there. That is not where you should be. If there's any kind of abandonment, those are legitimate things. If there's some kind of an addiction, right? If someone's, really like an alcoholic or a drug addict, or, you can't deal with that person. They're not fully there. So there's legitimate reasons to get a divorce. But if you are really wanting reconciliation and the other person is too, and you're both willing to do the work, and you're willing to rebuild the trust, and you're willing to forgive, right? That's the big piece. There has to be forgiveness. You have to be able to forgive and then an understanding of what went wrong and how to
Yeah.
work on those things. It's puzzling sometimes when I do talk to the person that maybe did have the affair, and I'll ask them, well, why did you do it? Why do you think that happened? And they can't give me a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know. But something obviously wasn't working in the marriage, because if you're happy in your relationship and you are, you're totally your best friends, your lovers, you're connected, you're close.
Yep.
You're not even going to dream or look at outside of your marriage, right? I know my husband says to me, how does he, because, those boundaries that you want to put up there, I always say, no, opposite sex friends except without your spouse. I mean, if you've got colleagues at work and you go out, you never go out to lunch with somebody of the opposite sex by yourself. I mean, you put some boundaries around. Some people think that's extreme, but you don't open the door. You don't allow that. And my husband says, he's got his own business. He works with a lot of women clients. But he says, I never hold a woman's gaze for very long. And he said, I always talk about you, about me. And he's like, especially if they get flirty with me, I start talking about you. And he just goes on. And he does it because it's like the vibe. I'm taken. I'm off the market. I'm happily married. I'm not even entertaining. I'm not even acknowledging. Right. So it's just because we're so perfectly matched. And we've also really worked through so many things in our own life. He's married twice before. I'm married once before. So we really know what we've got, and we really don't take each other for granted, and we nurture, and we're close. We're really good friends, and really. So I just want to give people hope that if you are in that situation right now and you don't know what to do, if the person that had the affair is still willing to work on the relationship, if you'll both do the work, you can repair the marriage. I just want that to be the sort of the positive encouragement about this conversation. And, if you're seeking some kind of help and gosh, we're not gonna be able to do this on our own, do that. Find someone. There's lots of great counselors and coaches out there. You just need to find one that you feel comfortable with, you have good rapport with, that is giving you what you're looking for. So that's really what I want to say, is that I think infidelity is, it's a problem. It's huge. It's a big deal. It's a breach of trust. It's betrayal. It's loaded. It's very loaded, but it doesn't have to be the end of a relationship.
Oh, well, thank you for being here, for joining us. And unfortunately, we're out of time. We're over time. Tell us quickly how we can reach out to you both. Thank you.
Sure. Well, my website is www.radiantcoachingandcounseling.com.
And Allison?
My website is www.isurvived.info. And I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Thank you both so much. Great conversation today. And I'm sure we'll talk more about infidelity. Big part of relationships. It really is, statistically wise, honestly wise, and there's a lot to talk about. Thank you again, Carla and Allison.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.